There is a lot of conspiracy theories out there.
There are.
The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria, you said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet is the Epstein files. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is the same as everything else. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever, but I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it. So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that, and it takes time.
So how long do you think that's going to take?
I don't know. I find that answer very interesting because I feel like, you know, Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying that there's a chance. Like, I feel like there's some information that can be gleaned from what he said. But, you know, also, you know, I give Kash Patel credit. He's going into a bureaucratic entity that has been drowning in partisanship and partisan ideology to the point where it's affected their operability. It's affected recruitment. It's affected their ability to even see through jobs and prevent tragedies. I mean, we could list those as well. So I would imagine it takes time. It's been, 4 months? I'm going to give him some grace on that. That said, I don't trust my government for anything. I mean, as far as I know, there's aliens out there in Bigfoot, Sasquatch communities. I have no clue. If you tell me, Dana, there's probably that chance that it's there, I believe it. I'm giving him time, but I do believe him. He'd be out with it.
I'm still waiting for my Fort Knox tour.
It's Groundhog's Day again. We have the Epstein list. No, we don't. Hold on. Here it is. We're going to release the Epstein videos. Who knows? Who knows? But we do know one thing, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting results. Oh, yeah. And we're going to talk about them on the show today. We're not a doomer show. We're a show that holds people accountable without trying to, like, torch bridges or create the kind of, like, I don't know, like bitter, angry, throwing bricks through glass houses kind of thing that happens so often. I don't think that's constructive. I think it's really constructive what the FBI is doing right now. And we're going to detail some massive bombshells that are happening, maybe not at the pace that the internet wants it to, and it's frustrating for us as well. But ladies and gentlemen, we have some breaking news today. Thursday, May 29th, 2025. Man, this month has flown by, hasn't it? Jeez. Donald Trump goes and gets a camel motorcade, and just the whole month just kind of zoinks out. It's amazing. FBI says that they are going to be releasing Epstein death footage. What? Hold on. So Jeffrey Epstein's death has been on camera this whole time? Really? Really? All right. Well, we're going to wait and see. New Crossfire Hurricane documents have been declassified, and it looks like people are going to jail? Question mark. We'll see, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk through all of it. Nell and Bruce Orr. You may recall their names. This is going to be a doozy. We're going to go deep in the archives. Speaking of deep in the archives, Dan Bongino just seconds ago on Fox News saying, listen, they hid documents from us. We had to crack open rooms, safes, buildings in order to find the stashes of documents that they hid from Trump, oversight, and federal law enforcement. People are going to prison. The case is being created, it's being made, and we have a great show. Members of Congress on the program today. The hound dogs of oversight, Senator Ron Johnson, an absolute dominant force in the Senate for oversight. He's going to be talking about a vicious letter that was sent from his Judiciary Committee to lock up the Russiagate hoaxers, along with Greg Steube and Andy Ogles, who will also be on the program. Excellent oversight Republicans. We're going to put pedal to the metal today on the show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. We are all feeling it. Obviously, the rising costs eating away at everything from groceries to gasoline to home repairs. And if you're a homeowner, you probably thought, should I call American Financing to refinance and pay off this credit card debt? Yeah, you should. Credit card debt is crippling for Americans. It's never been higher. We want you to get out of it. It's usury rates. It should be illegal. It's one of the strange little things that I would like link arms with Bernie Sanders on. You shouldn't be able to charge you 30% on these kind of bills, and it's obscene. You should like try having a kid. Like, it's amazing. Like the way that they try and rip you off. The hospital bills. We had our boy like 6 months ago, and like the hospital bills just keep rolling in. The way that they try and get you, man, it's illegal. What I'm trying to say is there's a way out, especially if you feel like you're drowning right now in credit card debt. The way out is your home's equity, and it can be unlocked by my friends at American Financing. American Financing are saving at their average American customers $800 a month by using the equity to break free from credit card debt. If you owe it, then they can help you fix it. Your family will thank you, and ladies and gentlemen, there are no upfront fees or pressure. Cost you nothing. Save every single month and get started today. Call American Financing today at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219. AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. Okay, so everyone's like, nothing ever happens. And I get it. The reason why I understand that is because it's like a pressure cooker, right? And it's been building, and it's been so hot, and it's been boiling over. And we've watched for the last 4 years the torturous reality of having to live there with the resident, Joe Biden, with terminal illness in the White House, being run by the Anita Dunn communist. Anita Dunn, man, we need to do an entire show on her. Maybe that's what we'll do tomorrow. We'll do an entire show, like breaking down this Marxist witch. She's a Marxist Beelzebub, this lady. Anyway, she ran the Joe Biden White House. We have more on the auto pen. It's going to be very interesting. But like, we've sat there and watched our movement get abused. We've watched our friends get arrested for like, what, waving an American flag on January 6th? We've watched people that we know and love, like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, be put in prison for not wanting to communicate with Nancy Pelosi's illegal January 6th committee. It was illegal. And we've watched cuck Republicans just sit back. And so there's like the default position is that no one's ever going to do anything. But I have a white pill for you this morning, and it comes from the strangest of places. A guy named Stephen A. Smith, who's a leftist, right? Probably. Okay, Democrat. He's been raging against the Democrat Party. He has been on a tear to try and figure out like how the party that he's a part of, the party that he pledged fealty to, Democrats, okay, so like consider the source here, just like with John Fetterman, don't fall for the op. Stephen A. Smith's one of us. No, he's not. Stephen A. Smith's maggot. No, he's not. But just like with Bill Maher, it's important to understand when you can turn people, like turning people and turning culture is the point. It's why we're live every single day. It's why we're live multiple times a day. There's a press conference today. We might be live for that as well. We are doing our best to turn culture so that the last 4 years can never happen again. The last 4 years of like explicit anti-white racism, gender madness, the sickness, the sickening of our children through everything from COVID protocols to true toxins and poisons being taught to them in their schools, the destruction of our ability to speak freely online. All of that was sort of baked into this soup that we were forced to eat, and people are sick of it, right? And people are rightfully, the pressure cooker is at its maximum, and people are like done. They're done. They're ready to, like, they're ready for the reversal. And so that's what the show is about. The show is about the reversal. And it starts with some of the key figures that push those hoaxes. Now, we've covered Bill Maher quite a bit, and how Bill Maher is now doing like lavish explainers on his show about what a dude Donald Trump is, what a good guy he is, and how wrong the left was for being such animals to him. Bill Maher is far more critical of the left than he is of the right on his show these days. That's good. That's a culture that we want to live in. We don't want our country to be ripped apart with us having nothing in common and being brought to the brink of civil war. We don't want that. We want a country where at the very least, like while you disagree, you share with your brethren the same future that you want for America. There are like ties that bind. That's how you have a functional country. So it's good. These moments are good. Stephen A. Smith gave a rant yesterday that said, yo, Donald Trump has every right to question the 2020 election results. In fact, I can understand why Trump believes that the election was stolen from him. This would have gotten Stephen A. Smith fired from his job at ESPN, kicked off every platform that he's on, and properly ridden out of popular culture. If he had done this monologue 3 years ago, he would have been cooked. This is how much we have turned the ship, and we should be proud of that. Here's Stephen A. Smith.
It makes Trump look right. Because that hatred for him that led people to compromise their own professional principles just to ensure that he didn't win the presidency? Well, if you were willing to do that, then all of a sudden, does it not buffer his arguments about lawfare being exercised against him? Does it not buffer his argument about fake news, fake news, fake news? Does it not buffer the credibility that comes to his arguments that it was a witch hunt? Does it not in some way buffer the notion that somebody might have cheated him in 2020? I don't believe that last part. He lost that damn election. And I get that. I'm talking about him genuinely feeling cheated, as opposed to knowing he's lying because, oh my God, the numbers say so. Why should he give a damn? The rest of us, yes. Why should he give a damn about the numbers? You see what hatred can do? You see what an absence of objectivity can do?
Stephen A. Smith is sitting there going, well, it's possible that they stole the election in 2020. Like, I don't believe that, but like, don't you want, like, we can understand it now. Like, we can get it now. Wow. I'm telling you, like, this culture, this moment, don't miss it. Don't take the black pill. Don't miss it. You've got to see the victories. Stephen A. Smith doing that monologue just a couple of months ago gets him deplatformed. What a cultural shift we are witnessing. Something amazing happened. Now we're going to get to Cash and Dan Bongino. They've both done independent hits over the last 12 hours, and there's a ton of news in both of those. But I'm going to start by revealing one of the first victories that we have in the declassification of the attempts to rig the election against Donald Trump. Now, Stephen A. Smith is sitting there from his platform at ESPN saying, yeah, I totally get it. They hated Trump so much, they were willing to kill him. They were willing to politically assassinate him, metaphorically assassinate him, physically assassinate him, judicially assassinate him, impeachment assassinate him. They did everything they could. They were trying to kill this man. Of course they would steal the election from him. I mean, I don't believe that. He's like contractually obligated to like say the second part, but he does believe it. He wouldn't be saying it if he didn't. This is crazy about this stuff. Look at these people stealing the election. Now we know it. Look at this. FBI declassifies secret document revealing dramatic developments in hunt for origins of Trump-Russia probe. A contractor, you may remember the Orr family, oh yes, the Orr family tied deep into the FBI and Fusion GPS, has been accused of making false claims to Congress about the origins of the probe into Donald Trump. Nell Orr, who worked for Fusion GPS. What is Fusion GPS? I mean, this gets very complicated, but when you break it down, it's actually quite simple. Fusion GPS was an operation house, like a PR operation house, like a bag of dirty tricks house for Hillary Clinton. It was run by one of Hillary Clinton's best friends. And what they did was they went abroad in order to write foreign disinformation, the PP dossier. Donald Trump did all these nasty things in Russia, did all these illegal deals. They used Russians to spread lies about Donald Trump. It was written up by Fusion. It was paid for and written up by Fusion GPS and was laundered through the FBI. And now they have him dead to rights. Look at this. She was accused of falsely testifying to Congress and new declassified FBI documents from 2019. The allegation obtained by Daily Mail reveals the Bureau's Office of Federal Public Corruption Squad in Washington, D.C., tasked with reviewing congressional criminal referrals, accusing Orr of obstructing an investigation and providing Congress with demonstrably false information. Demonstrably false information. Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley responded to the document's release by saying, lying to Congress, Nell Orr showed contempt for congressional oversight and the American people. Congressional criminal referral accused Orr of falsely testifying that she did not have any knowledge of the ongoing investigation of Donald Trump's connection to Russia, and she denied sharing her research with Russia with individuals outside of Fusion GPS. That would be her husband, who worked for the FBI. This is what we would call crossfire hurricane. They are ripping the onion layers back. You can see here the smug, arrogant, pretentious Nell Orr as she is being marched into Congress. She lied in her testimony. The FBI now acknowledges this. The DOJ acknowledges this. Chuck Grassley acknowledges this. We'll have Ron Johnson on the program who acknowledges this. And more importantly, it now sits at the DOJ. Well, isn't this exactly what you threw Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro? Isn't this much higher crime than you threw those guys in prison for? Our boys, Navarro, Bannon, both have been on the show a couple of times. They did hard time in federal penitentiaries for just not showing up to Congress, not just lying to Congress. Make an example. You got to do it. You got to make the example. And you know what? I'll tell you what. They say, like, the reason why the term rats fleeing a ship exists is because the rats live in the hull of the ship, and, like, the rats know when a ship's breaking apart and something bad's going on. The rats behave very scared. When a rat's behaving very scared on a ship, you know something bad's about to happen. Watch the rat, James Comey, on CNN. This was from yesterday. James Comey had a public meltdown about what's about to happen inside of the FBI. This guy is in panic. Like, James Comey understands that the gig is, like, something bad is very, very bad is about to happen to him. And we're going to outline exactly what is happening with the interviews with Cash and Dan. But I think we should start with the panic here. Not only are the hoaxes collapsing in unbelievable real time, everything from 2020 election steal to Russiagate is all being, like, dragged out into the public. Dan Bongino also announcing a special task force to investigate Dr. Fauci and COVID origins today. Really interesting stuff there. But look at the reactions of the rats. Check out James Comey. This is going to be our salt that lib of the day, just because, like, why not? So pour salt on James Comey, but sense and smell the panic here. Go.
Something supported by a lot of conservatives out there. What do you make of this?
It's a little confusing to me, honestly. I'm sure it's a huge adjustment to go from being a podcaster to being the deputy director of the FBI, but I don't understand this tweet. First of all, I assume that the investigation of the pipe bomb that was found on January 6th was never closed. The FBI never closes such a thing, so I guess it means they're going to focus on it more. And as to the other things, I thought the Supreme Court marshal had investigated the leak of the opinion, the draft opinion. I don't know what the FBI's role is there. Cocaine at the White House, I thought the Secret Service investigated that, so I don't follow it and understand it. I also don't understand who the audience is for this tweet. The FBI often calls for public assistance, or in matters of great public concern will announce an investigation to reassure the public. This seems much more narrowly targeted, maybe to a former podcast audience.
That's potentially what's going on. I want to get your also reaction to an exchange the new FBI Director Kash Patel had with Democratic Senator Patty Murray during a recent congressional hearing. Listen to this.
Director Patel, where is the FY 2026 budget request for the FBI?
It's being worked on, ma'am.
Have you reviewed it? Have you approved it?
Not yet.
When will we get it?
As soon as I can get it from my interagency partners and get it approved.
That is insufficient and deeply disturbing. No response?
I've given my response.
Are you concerned that the FBI will still be able to fulfill all of its important duties with Director Kash Patel leading the Bureau?
I hope so. That I cringe at that clip. I actually feel kind of sorry for the guy. It's like showing up for a final exam with no pencils and no paper, and you didn't even know there was a final exam. And so I hope the career people are able to support the director and the deputy director. There are lots of people in the FBI who know what they're doing. I hope these two guys are letting them guide them.
You think they know what they're doing?
The career people know what they're doing.
No. The career people know what they're doing, but the new director and the deputy director.
Nothing in their life or their career gives me confidence that they know anything about leading an organization like that. And so I would have serious doubts. I bet they do internally about whether they have doubts. Great. Let the people who know what they're doing give you advice and listen to them.
Yes, all of my agents that I hired, that I just told to 86 Donald Trump, those guys, they know what they're doing. Trust them. Trust the FBI goon squads that went and did early morning raids on Trump administration officials, on J6ers, peaceful grandmothers. Trust them. They're the ones. Trust the FBI agents that spied on Christians. Trust the FBI agents that created the Whitmer Fednapping hoax. Trust them. They're the ones who know what they're doing, not cashing in. Okay, so here we go. Let's begin with just going to work, ripping the bark off of James Comey. Let's start with that. Because Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are waging their own war. They've been silent for the last few months as they got to work here. I think that's smart. They both work out of SCIFs. These are secure facilities. You're not allowed to have phones inside of these SCIFs. Both their offices are inside of facilities where they can't even communicate, right? And I'm going to say this as we've said it before, because both of these men have been on the show. You know, as a matter of, like, I will admit to you, and have done so publicly and have done so live on the stream, what our relationship is with these guys. And here's what they ask. Hold them accountable with actions. I don't care what you say. I'm actually glad they haven't been speaking out a lot. Actions will speak so much louder than any yapping. That's all James Comey has. James Comey just yap, 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 yap. You can sense the fear and the panic. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Kash Patel ripping Comey apart and alluding to a potential DOJ criminal referral by the FBI of James Comey for calling for the assassination of the president. Here we go.
What did you make of your predecessors' walk on the beach with the shells 8647?
You know, the FBI is bigger than any leader it's ever had or ever will have. And James Comey's a private citizen, and he can walk around the beach and talk about seashells and Crayola crayons for all I care about, and talk about how we're the conspiracy theorists. But I just remind the American people of one thing. When that man was the leader of the FBI, he perpetrated the largest criminal conspiracy, packaged political information from overseas, took it to a federal FISA court, and illegally surveilled a political opponent. So I won't be lectured on how to run this FBI from that man.
Well, James Comey was just on talking about all of that, the seashells and everything, and he also talked about you.
Obviously, you start with the fact that the guy has literally nothing in his entire adult life that prepares him for this role, and so that's deeply concerning to start with. In a way, I'm a little bit sorry for the guy. He's barked at the FBI nonsense for years, and now he not only caught the car, he's got to drive the car, and so that is a daunting task for him. I hope he lets the career people do their jobs, but they've already forced out a bunch of good career people and sent a chill through the organization.
That's James Comey.
If he wants to come after me, no problem. I've been living rent-free in that guy's head for years, and that's just a bonus. Do you know how many copycats we've had to investigate as a result of that beachside venture from the former director?
Is that right?
Do you know how many agents I've had to take offline from chasing down child sex predators, fentanyl traffickers, terrorists? Because everywhere across this country, people are popping up on social media and think that a threat to the life of the president of the United States is a joke and they can do it because he did it. That's what I'm having to deal with every single day. And that's what I'm having to pull my agents and analysts off because he thought it was funny to go out there and make a political statement.
It's almost like Kash Patel is setting up a potential criminal referral. Now remember, the FBI just investigates. They have to put the entire investigative suite onto the DOJ, and allow the DOJ to charge. That's the role of the DOJ, is then to take all that information and then to charge with crimes, right? And then prosecute, decide where and how the federal government is going to prosecute people. But it's almost like Kash Patel is laying the groundwork here with the exposing, one, of Russiagate liars to Congress, the oars, the slow build of declassifications to Congress on these crimes, and then the laying of the groundwork of charges against Comey. Incitement to kill the president. We've already talked about this federal statute. I don't remember off the top of my head the U.S. code number, but it's pretty obvious what James Comey is guilty of here and how you could charge him. And he's already been taken in for questioning. It's time to really put the pain on James Comey. If you take out the big dog, right? If you take out the one who's been building this resentment, the king of the deep state, James Comey, if you were able to break him, then you will send a message. I think that would be a really smart way to do this. 18 U.S. Code 871. Threats against the president and the successors to the presidency. Yikes. Dan Bongino spared absolutely no love for James Comey on his hit this morning, and then alluded to some major crimes within the FBI. We'll get to that in just a second. Here we go. Here's Bongino.
I got to tell you, of all the things that have surprised me in the close to now 3 months I've been here is the depravity of Jim Comey. This man is a disgrace to the badge, the FBI, and the country. What he's doing right now, one, going out in the media, taking shots at Kash. Kash doesn't belong. Kash was the chief of staff at the Department of. Kash is a patriot. Kash has served in numerous high-level roles, taking personal shots while you're on the beach, implying a threat towards the president, and blaming your wife about it. And let me just add about James Comey, Saint Comey, who walks around there moralizing to everyone how wonderful of a human being he is. What you said is absolutely accurate. We have wasted countless man hours now running out tips to our tip line about people putting 8647 because of Jim Comey, because he cannot control himself and his emotions. He is a child.
Really be nice to make an example of James Comey calling for the assassination of Donald Trump. It'd be really nice for them to start to charge maybe internal crimes at the FBI, as Dan Bongino detailed here, which is the biggest news to come out of his interview this morning. Dan Bongino's interview this morning on Fox and Friends, he broke down how the FBI has hidden evidence in locked rooms, in locked lockers, throughout their organizations, rats on a ship, like rats in rat holes, saying that they have had to pry open and pull the criminal evidence, especially about rigging the election against Trump, out of hidden FBI locations, but they've got them. They caught them. And who he's talking about is James Comey. Here we go.
Wait till you read the stuff that's coming out.
Does he still have loyalists in the building? Because when I hear the FBI director saying, you guys are finding boxes that are hidden, okay, how does that happen in the Bureau?
Well, we were there a couple of weeks, and luckily there were a lot of people up there who grabbed us by the arm the minute we came in and said, thank you for being here. We need to talk. There are people there who are really horrified at what happened. And there was a room, and we found stuff, a lot of stuff.
A hidden room.
I wouldn't call it hidden, but hidden from us at least, and not mentioned to us. And then we found stuff in there, and a lot of it's from the Comey era, and we are working our damnedest right now to declassify. And just so you know, because I get the public, I totally understand people saying, well, do it now. The process is not all the information is ours to declassify. Some is other intelligence agencies. It's not, we literally can't do it. Once that gets done and that gets out there, and you read some of the stuff we found that, by the way, was not processed through the normal procedure, digitizing it, putting in FBI records. We found it in bags hiding under Jim Comey's FBI. Quickly, you're going to be stunned.
You're going to be stunned when you find out who was behind January 6th. It's something that Kash Patel said also in his interview. I like it. I don't know what you all think. Let me know in the chat. I like that they're out and talking now. I feel like there was a pressure cooker that we talked about, rightfully so. You have every reason as an American to be angry at your FBI and intel agencies, to be disgusted, to want them dismantled. Kash Patel announcing he's going to dismantle the Hoover building. Promise made, promise kept. Kash Patel talking about how they use the Hoover building to stash away documents as well. This is what being on message looks like. Here we go.
So this is about Crossfire Hurricane. You just talked about that, all that you've been learning. Can you give us a little of that wave of transparency?
Absolutely. So just quickly on Crossfire Hurricane, that is a continuing production. We have found material, and I'm the Crossfire Hurricane guy, that I didn't even know existed in FBI holdings.
So there's been held someplace else? Or
that's been stashed away in locations that people thought we wouldn't find it because we wouldn't know to look for it there. And as promised with my congressional partners, I'm working with Congress on constitutional oversight because that's what the American people deserve. And those documentations have been flowing to Congress nonstop on a rolling basis since that interview.
Flowing to Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very interesting. We're going to be speaking in just a moment with Congressman Steube about this. Congressman Steube will be joining us. He's been the absolute bulldog on oversight on these issues, but especially with like the pipe bomber, with January 6th, with what actually happened there, some of the toughest questions asked of our intel experts by the Judiciary and Oversight Committee. Where's Christopher Wray in all this? It does really beg the question, like when are we finally going to get to the head of this? When are we going to get to Comey, Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, Kash Patel saying there is a cover-up with the pipe bomber? James Comey saying, I don't know, I'm sure it was still an open investigation. They know exactly what they did. We've had the FBI agents on this program, on this live, saying we were told to not investigate. We had the pipe bomber. We had him. We knew who it was. And they pulled us. Kash Patel spitting last night, not only on January 6th, but also on the pipe bomber story. The pipe bomber is the key to unlocking what the feds did during January 6th. Let's go.
Deputy, before he became deputy, said this.
Like many people, I believe the FBI knows the identity of this pipe bomber on January 6th, 4 years ago, and just doesn't want to tell us because it was an inside job.
Why didn't they find the bomber, the pipe bomber? You know, they know who the pipe bomber is. The FBI knows who it is.
Does the FBI know who it is?
The FBI, under me and Dan Bongino's leadership, has reestablished that investigations of great public importance that almost blew up the DNC and RNC in Washington, D.C., an area in which then Vice President Harris was in the vicinity of, is something that needs to be answered. And we learned that FBI leadership in the prior administration slow-rolled and basically shut that investigation off. So we turned it on. And we have some great leads, and Dan is actually going to talk about that when he does Fox and Friends tomorrow.
Okay. You don't want to give us a little something?
I can't get ahead of everybody.
All right, all right.
Dan Bongino announced earlier this week that his focus is going to be the J6 pipe bomber, the cocaine at the White House, and the leaks from the Supreme Court. Kash Patel, last night on Brett Baer's show, saying Dan's going to answer that. And here's the answer. Dan Bongino saying, not only have we got tips from inside of the Secret Service, inside of the Supreme Court, inside of the FBI about what was happening with all of these investigations, we are going to be breaking them wide open soon, and you are going to see all of it. Here's Bongino following through on that promise.
So the moment Kash and I swore in, we realized that the first thing we had to do is rebuild public trust. This is your FBI. It's not mine. I tell the employees every day, you don't own it, you don't own it, I don't own it. It's like being the center fielder for the Yankees. That'll live with you forever, but you don't own the Yankees. It's a proud franchise. The place has taken a reputational hit. There is zero question about it. There were a lot of bad actors. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. So we had to fix it and rebuild public trust. One of the ways to do it is these cases of significant public interest that matter. You know, we had 2 pipe bombs planted on January 6th. I mean, we were told by partisan actors out there this was the insurrection, the world was going to fall apart, and no one seemed to show any interest in this case. The second we got in, I put a team on it, and I said, I want answers on this. And I'm pretty confident that we're closing in on some suspects. We got to The reason, by the way, I use social media with these cases, I'm trying to communicate on social media, is nothing's by accident, guys. I do nothing by accident. Every time I put a tweet out on it, we get tips. We got a fascinating tip on one of these cases, one of the three. I don't want to say which one, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to close out one of them, hopefully shortly.
Just yesterday, we had the best reporter on the Secret Service who's been doing excellent work for Real Clear Politics. Her name was Susan Crabtree. She was live on the stream, and she was talking about the cocaine and the DNA and the positive hit that they have, DNA inside of that cocaine baggie, and the rush to destroy it by the Secret Service and the cover up there. And she said, get ready. This thing's going to be blown wide open. We know from Secret Service leaks that it was a member of the Biden family. We know as a matter of absolute fact that it had to be a member of the Biden family because that's the only kind of people that can get access to the library at the White House and the executive office space at the White House and those little cubbies at the White House. Was the evidence moved from the family quarters? Absolutely. Is this why Joe Biden looks so zoinked out of his mind? I don't know. That's what Donald Trump suggested. Not sure. But there needs to be prosecutions. The final step in all of this is people need to go to prison. Now, we love seeing the footage of the judge, for instance, these Democrat judges being hauled away in handcuffs. It's like a good marker in the road, right? That this is very different. But people need to have a fall. Cash is saying there's going to be prosecuted. Now, Bret Baier did an incredible job questioning Kash Patel last night, and he left it with this: it's never going to happen, right? Bret Baier. Probably many in the comments, right, and probably many in the chat right now, chat on the screen, saying, nothing's ever going to happen. Bret Baier said, well, Cash, nothing will ever happen, right? And here was his response.
And if somebody says, how long is that going to take? You know, we always see investigations in Washington that end up in blue ribbon commissions, and it doesn't seem like anything comes from it. Do you think actual prosecutions will come from some of this stuff?
I think from some of this stuff, when we go back and look at things like the pipe bomber case, the cocaine in the White House, January 6th, and Crossfire Hurricane, the prosecutorial decisions will lay at the Department of Justice. But we are rigorously investigating them, and I think we've developed some great leads. And I also think we're not going to wait for any blue ribbon commissions. That's up to Congress. If they want to do that, that's totally fine. They're a coordinate branch of government. But we've got answers coming on all these matters.
You know, sunlight is the best disinfectant, ladies and gentlemen. And a man who's on the Intelligence Committee would have oversight of the FBI, who could answer a lot of these questions. And maybe, just maybe, Greg Steube, representative from Florida, can shed a little light on some of the information that Kash Patel says is flowing to Congress. And he joins us live right now. Congressman, good morning. What's up, man?
Good morning. How you doing?
So what do you take of these Kash Patel and Dan Bongino out hitting the pavement, putting the rubber to the road and doing interviews?
Well, I tell you, yeah, and I think what I personally love to hear as a member of Congress who's been in a Democratic House, now a Republican House, and now with Trump in the White House and having to withstand 4 years of Joe Biden in the White House, is you finally have an administration that's talking about repercussions for all of these things that all of us watched happen. Yeah. Crossfire Hurricane, spying on the Trump campaign, bombers, January 6th, like all of this stuff that we sit back and go, is there ever going to be justice for these people? I sure hope. I mean, it's very heartwarming to hear from Bongino and from Cash that there's going to be prosecutorial evidence that's going to be sent to the DOJ. And obviously the DOJ makes that decision. But that's headed up by Pam Bondi, and if there's charges that can be filed, they're going to be filed. That's very good for the nation, because one of the biggest things for conservatives, one of the things that have agitated the crap out of me for years, is all of these people like James Comey, all of these deep state actors that were working for the FBI, that were spying on the Trump campaign, that were using the FISA court to get warrants illegally to spy on the Trump campaign. Nothing has happened to any of these people. Nothing has happened to Peter Strzok. Nothing has happened to any of these people that used the intelligence apparatus of our country to spy on their political enemy. And if nothing ever happens to these people, it'll continue to happen. Now, we've done some reforms in Congress, like putting sworn requirements on some of these FISA warrants that will help. But you got to see some type of justice served on these people that have abused the intelligence apparatus, because that also sends a very strong signal to all these deep state actors. Hey, you Comey, you guys do this stuff, you're going to go to jail and you're going to face penalties for it.
So Kash Patel, you're on the Intel Committee, so you have oversight of the FBI. It's an intelligence agency. The Kash Patel is saying that information and documents are flowing to Congress right now. They're flowing to you. Can you confirm that that's true?
Yeah, and yes, and I will give you an example of that because we made it public and declassified some of it. So all the baseball shooting stuff that happened at the practice where Steve Scalise got shot, there was a shooter that attempted to try to kill a whole bunch of Republican members of Congress, that the deep state hid and classified it so that the American public couldn't find out that this guy was a far left activist that wanted to kill a bunch of Republican members of Congress that day. All of that was released to us days after we asked him. We had an intelligence briefing hearing. It was open to the public, and we asked him, hey, are you going to give this information to us? For 6 years, we haven't gotten anything, and he released all of it. And then the Intelligence Committee 2 or 3 weeks ago, we declassified what was declassified and released all that information to the public. This guy, the shooter, was researching members of Congress, Republican members of Congress. He researched the objective. He went out to the baseball field before he committed the crime that he committed. And thankfully that day, Steve Scalise was there, because if he wouldn't have been, his personal detail wouldn't have been there, and there would have been a bunch of dead members of Congress. But we released all of that information. So yes, Kash Patel is flowing that information to Congress, and as he's getting it, he's ordering it to be released, and we're getting stuff that we haven't seen for years. This particular example was 6 years ago, where you had a deep state that was playing defense and not allowing us to get the information that we had requested.
I mean, it confounds the mind that they would cover up for an assassin.
Well, and what's
trying
nuts
to kill.
is
They're trying
this-
to kill Republicans. I mean,
Yes.
it goes past incompetence to malevolence.
Well, and they did that intentionally. None of this should have ever been classified. This guy was a domestic terrorist that should have been classified as this. They classified it as a death by cop type thing. There was no cops on the field that day. This guy didn't know that the people in plain clothes sitting in the dugout were Capitol Police, and he didn't go try to shoot them. He tried to shoot members of Congress. They had notes that he had a journal. He had specific notes as to what congressman he wanted to kill. This wasn't death by cop. This was a domestic terrorist situation. It was a crime that was committed. It never should have been classified. Once the investigation that was done, all of this information should have been released, but it wasn't, because they wanted to classify it so that they could hide the information from the American public that this guy was a far left Democrat that wanted to kill a bunch of Republican members of Congress that day.
We went through his Facebook back when it was still up, right after the shooting, like seconds afterwards, and it was just MSNBC links. And if this had been a shooter for Democrats in Congress, I hate playing this game, but like if it was just Fox News, I mean, they'd shut down the network, frankly.
Oh yeah.
If it were the opposite, they'd take all of our channels down, right? If they were able to find the opposite effect. And so it's great that it's happening. Be nice for it to happen with some of the more recent. I mean, it's hard to really categorize this as not as less important because people were getting shot on baseball fields, but like we have the January 6th pipe bomber who was clearly identified by the FBI. We've had the agents on the show saying we knew pretty much who this person was, and they told us to stop investigating. What is that, Congressman?
That's
what's going on there?
Obstruction of justice and is a federal crime. And that's why to hear the way that Kash Patel and Bongino are talking, if that in fact happened, they got to know who those people are. Those people should be charged with a federal crime. And when that happens, that sends shockwaves into the intelligence agencies, that sends shockwaves into the FBI, that if you obstruct justice for political purposes, you are going to be held accountable. And that's the type of things that I'm talking about that is so refreshing as a member of Congress, to see that our agencies are going to be operating in the way that the American people want them to operate, because they haven't been for decades. And finally, hopefully some of these people will face the justice that they deserve.
What's your take here, Congressman, on the pipe bomber? And again, you're on the Intel committee. Have you gotten any documentation? And have you gotten any further documentation on January 6th? Federal FBI informants, feds inside of the Capitol wearing MAGA hats, as we've heard members of Congress talking about. Can you preview for us a little bit of the extra knowledge that you're getting now about what happened that day?
Well, finally, after years, we now know that there were undercover FBI. Well, we all knew it, but nobody would admit that that was the fact. But we know there were undercover FBI agents that day at the Capitol. We in the Intelligence Committee have not gotten specific briefings on that. But those are some things that I can request. And then as this investigation is ongoing, that Cash and Bongino are talking about, obviously they're going to brief the committee on that. So I look forward to reviewing that. But we now know that there were FBI agents, undercover FBI agents in January 6th. Now, what we haven't gotten the information on is what specifically they were doing. Were they just kind of playing along and acting like protesters, or were they actually instigating a lot of this? Because as we do know now, and we still don't have cell phone information from Nancy Pelosi to the Capitol Police guy resigned. The Sergeant of Arms guy that were under Pelosi that day resigned. Trump on that day offered the military to the National Guard to come and do defense. Nancy Pelosi said no. So I've always believed that this was a huge cover up and they wanted all of this to happen. I have personally seen video of Capitol Police standing there and people just walking into the Capitol and those people not knowing that they can't walk in because the cops aren't doing anything. So there's a lot of investigation now that's going to come out of that. Barry Loudermilk and the House Administration Committee has reopened a January 6th investigation to look at all of this stuff. So I'm very much looking forward to that as well. But They can do it a lot faster on the admin side than we can on the congressional side.
So you're saying that you have none of Pelosi's documents from that?
No,
day?
she's never. No, we as Republicans. So back to that period of time, we were in the minority. We requested all of that information. We requested communications between Speaker Pelosi, Capitol Police, Speaker Pelosi, and the Sergeant of Arms, email. We didn't ever get any of that. And then think back to the January 6th committee. That was all, they destroyed evidence. And that's what Barry Loudermilk's committee is now looking at, is the former January 6th committee destroyed evidence before the Republicans took over the majority. Evidence that was exculpatory to the president, and and the chairman never allowed them to go after any of the communications between Speaker Pelosi and Capitol Police and Speaker Pelosi and the sergeant's office. We've never gotten any of that. So I would imagine that's probably been destroyed, but hopefully now that they're doing this investigation the right way, Loudermilk's committee can get some of that information.
Goodness. What's your hunch here, Congressman, as to what they're trying to cover up? Because clearly, if they had put the full weight of the FBI's intelligence and investigation units on, they would know who the pipe bomber was. Again, we have credible sources that are telling us that the FBI pulled their teams from investigating the pipe bomb. And they've been so shady with everything from the gallows that were built and like the hoax there, Ed Martin revealing that hoax live on the program a couple of months ago, to Pelosi's records. Like, it's clearly a cover-up, right? Like, so what's your hunch as to what they're covering up?
Well, my hunch is, because Pelosi was speaker at the time, is they wanted this to happen. They wanted the protesters to be able to come into the Capitol so then they could label it an insurrection, and then they could hang it on Trump for the rest of his political career. And if you look at what happened in the mainstream media, that's exactly what happened for years. Donald Trump allowed and started an insurrection. You had Liz Cheney chiming in and piling on as a quote unquote Republican. And so that's my hunch, is that Pelosi wanted to create an opportunity for what happened to happen, instead of allowing Trump to bring in the National Guard, which he offered for them and the DC mayor at the time to do, to ensure that nobody got hurt and nobody came in. So my hunch is that they allowed the protesters to come in, created an environment for that to happen, because then politically they could say, oh, look, Donald Trump created this insurrection. Is exactly what they did. Have the January 6th committee to lay it all on Trump, even though he obviously didn't have control of what was happening on the Capitol that day, and blame him for what occurred. That's my hunch. And for years, the FBI refused to tell Republicans. Again, we were in the minority. refused to tell Republicans that there were FBI agents on the ground that day. What they would say is when Director Wray would come in, they'd say, well, we can't confirm or deny that there were any agents that were there that day. Well, now we know that there were agents there that day. What were they doing? Were they instigating? Were they just playing along to be plainclothes officers in case something happened? Or were they involved in what was happening that day? Those are the answers that we still need.
Should we expect a investigation into Nancy Pelosi from a Republican committee and into these actions?
I would encourage you to reach out to Barry Loudermilk and his committee, but I sure hope that that's what they're going to do, because the chairman from Mississippi that chaired the January 6th committee, we know for a fact that they destroyed evidence before the Republicans took over. So one, getting that evidence would be great, and getting the evidence that they destroyed, and two, going after evidence that they absolutely refused to go after. They absolutely refused to go after Nancy Pelosi. He specifically wouldn't allow any communications to become from there. Why? She was the Speaker of the House at the time. She was in charge of Capitol Police. She was in charge of the Sergeant of Arms. And both of those guys resigned right afterwards. I would pull them in and subpoena them and depose them. I would go after as much of the communication as you possibly could to see what exactly was being said between the Speaker at the time and these different law enforcement agencies on that day, and then leading up to that day.
You know, the more that we learn about Joe Biden, his terminal illness, the more that we learn about how completely cognitively collapsed he was, the more valuable that presidency seems to look for someone like Pelosi or an Elizabeth Warren or members of an archetype that wishes to run the executive branch by fiat through autopen. I know you've posted quite a bit about this. You've been very much a bulldog on this issue. Can you give us an update on where that investigation is going, Congressman?
Yeah, Congressman Comer and the Oversight Committee has started an investigation there. It's my understanding that they know or have a pretty good idea of who the staffers were that were in charge of the auto pen. Obviously, if Joe Biden didn't direct them to do whatever they were doing, that's a violation of federal law. So I'm assuming that they're going to start bringing these people in and deposing them. You don't want to have a public hearing because only members of Congress get 5 minutes and it's the cameras and all that. You want to subpoena them, bring them in under oath, and have our lawyers depose them for as long as it takes. Could take a day, could take 2 days, and ask very tough, very pointed questions. I would even hire in outside counsel that do this every single day, do the criminal side of it, because they know what they're doing and they know what questions to ask, and to ask those very important questions of these individuals and get to the bottom of what was happening. But we all know that Joe Biden wasn't in charge of the White House. And again, you know, it takes a couple of years. It takes the Republicans to get in the majority to get the information. But finally, we're seeing what was happening during Joe Biden's presidency.
I'd like to focus in on these pardons. You're no friend of Dr. Fauci. And just focus in really quickly on these pardons. It's a constant scandal that happens where members of Congress, where executives, typically governors, right, get traded pardons for cash, where there's some type of a business arrangement that happens and it's totally corrupt. And oftentimes you get stories like this. And do you believe that that's what was happening here with Joe Biden?
Well, and what I think needs to happen, again, this is something that Congress has the ability to do. Bring in Fauci, bring in Liz Cheney, and because they have accepted a pardon, they cannot plead the Fifth Amendment. So when you ask them questions, they have to tell you the truth. They can't hide behind the Fifth Amendment. And if they lie during the commission of a sworn testimony, that is a new crime that is not covered by their pardon. So bring each and every one of these people in. I have encouraged Chair Jordan to do this. I have encouraged Chair Loudermilk to do this because he can do this under the January 6th committee on Liz Cheney. I have encouraged Chair Comer to do this. Bring them in on a subpoena, do a sworn deposition. They cannot hide behind the Fifth Amendment because they accepted the pardon, and they have to tell you everything. And if they lie to you in the commission of the deposition, they have committed a new crime that is not covered by the pardon, and they can be charged for that. So they're stuck. They have to tell you the truth or commit another crime that is not covered by the pardon. I would pull every single one of these people in and start asking very tough, pointed questions. And I think Loudermilk's gotten some of the background information that happened with the January 6th stuff because he's in charge of that investigation. Maybe he's waiting to get that evidence and that information to be able to do a good depo. That's what I would do as a lawyer. And so I hope, and I've encouraged them to do this. That's up to the chairman to do that. But we absolutely have to do that. And they can't hide behind the fifth, which is a very important piece of the pardon process that would allow us to get a lot of other information, which will also probably get information on a lot of other people that were involved in all this stuff.
Excellent. So just finally, a question about criminal referrals here. Breaking news about the FBI and its secret FISA court cover-up here. Turns out that the FBI has produced documents about Nell Orr lying to the Senate. Chuck Grassley, Ron Johnson will be joining our program in just a moment, but they've been raging about this, that there was a massive cover-up with Russiagate and that there were demonstrable, as they call it, lies in order to launder foreign disinformation through our FISA courts and open up a hoax into Donald Trump. Now, this
100%.
This would be squarely in your wheelhouse with the Intel Committee, because these FISA courts obviously run through your committee and you have oversight of them. Can we expect criminal referrals, the ones that you were talking about earlier in the show, for the Russiagate hoaxers, finally, Congressman?
That is my hope. Kash Patel would be in charge of that investigation. And so based on the comments that he said in the original part of the show, it sounds like they're investigating this. Here is the challenge back then from a criminal referral perspective is, believe it or not, these guys could proffer this information to the FISA court without any swearing of the truth of the authenticity of those subpoenas and those warrants. We've changed that now. Now that's a crime, but back then it wasn't. So you have to get them lying to Congress, which is a crime. So if they've come before Congress, if they've come before the intelligence committees, I wasn't on the intelligence committees at that time, and they lied to Congress, that is absolutely something that they can be charged with and should be charged with. And hopefully the FBI would refer that to the DOJ for prosecution. That has to happen. There has to be some repercussions. All this Russiagate stuff, spying on Trump's campaign, the lies to the American people that were then regurgitated on national news. I mean, all of these 51 intel officers who swore and signed a letter that the laptop story was Russian disinformation. Now they've all lost their security clearances thanks to President Trump, but all those people should be held accountable to lying to the American people. It obviously takes a little bit of time, but hopefully all this is coming.
All right. I don't know if are you a Florida Gator, Congressman?
Yeah, I am, and I've been lighting into all this stuff that's going on. I have no idea. Look, I'd encourage your viewers to follow my social media.
Yeah.
Follow my social media. I've pointed out videos, statements this guy has made. Why in the world the University of Florida Board of Trustees, and now it goes to the Board of Governors next week, would think it is a good idea to make this guy president of the University of Florida. I did undergrad law school there. I'm a UF Hall of Famer. I'm a Florida Blue Key member. I spent 8 years of my life at the University of Florida. Obviously, it's important to me that we have a good leader and a good president. And this guy is like the grandfather of DEI in colleges. Why in the world they would think this is a good idea to have him president of the UF, I have no idea.
Well, I think that it makes a lot of sense from an enemy's perspective. You have to get a line in at some point into the state of Florida. You've got to be able to break the great things, the great work that the Republican Party is doing in the state. It's the best in the country. And so this would be perhaps a way to do it, right? You sneak in through higher education. It's how Marxists have always done it, Congressman.
Well, and it's crazy. If you watched his interview before the Board of Trustees Tuesday, he backtracked on all of these statements that he's made over the years. Oh, my position has changed now. Oh, so either you were lying then or you're lying now. Regardless, this isn't the type of person with that type of record that we should have leading the institution. And it's shocking to me that, I'm talking about it. Don Jr. just tweeted about it. Charlie Kirk has been talking about it. You've got a lot of conservatives that are raising a really big red flag. And hopefully the Board of Governors next week will see through this guy's masquerade and deny his ability to lead one of the largest universities in the state of Florida.
I'm not one for big-time live announcements of political endorsements, but I endorse Congressman Greg Steube to lead the state of Florida Gators University.
Certainly would have conservative leadership. Holy crap.
It's got to happen. This is the prophecy must be foretold. Thank you very much, Congressman. Godspeed, and everybody, of course, go follow the congressman who is rounding the corner on 200,000 subscribers on his X feed, an absolute brawler and a freedom fighter in this great free state. Thank you.
Thanks, Benny. Good to see you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the excellent Senator Ron Johnson, arguably the single greatest populist and nationalist, and a man who has the rock ribs in the Senate to really rock the deep state, a man who has made an enormous amount of news on this program, has some big news to talk about with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I did want to announce, since we are on the topic of the state of Florida, what sits inside of my little Benny Brigade coffee mug every single morning. It is the delicious Blackout Coffee. Blackout Coffee is what fuels our program. It's what fuels our ability to fight every single day for you. It's because it's a family-owned business. It's run right here out of the state of Florida. And their black coffee that happens to be iced this morning, get a little hot here in Tampa, it is what powers us every morning. They're the kind of company that is built the way that we are built. We simply want to do this to create for our families. We want to do this to create for our country. To leave out, what is the goal of this? What is the goal of this show? To leave our country better for our children than we found it. That's it. That's it. We're pretty public about that. And it's also why I'm public about sort of our fatherhood journey here. Now, we do have 4 little kids. They are up all hours of the night sometimes. And so the Blackout Coffee works even better for me in the morning. If you believe in hard work, American values, and coffee that actually tastes like coffee, go to blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Use the code Benny for 20% off your first order. Support the American dream and drink Blackout. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin joining the show live now. Senator, thank you so much for being on the program. Chuck Grassley making quite a bit of news in a, another strongly worded letter about the Orrs. What a sick little family, lying to the Senate Judiciary Committee, lying to Congress about Russiagate. This is all of the news. It seems to be the slow trickle of declassifications from the FBI finally hitting your desk in the Senate. Led to start the conversation with this. Can we expect there to be criminal prosecutions for what is being called a demonstrable lie to the Senate and to your committee?
Well, Benny, I think you realize that we do investigations. We try and expose wrongdoing, and then we'll refer that information to the Justice Department. It'll be up to them whether or not they want to issue charges and prosecute, in this case, Nellie Orr. But if we can prove, and it sure seems like she lied to Congress, that should be prosecuted. We should make an example of these individuals that are in responsible positions that just bold-faced lie to Congress during our investigation. So I've really enjoyed my working together with Chairman Grassley. Our staffs work together very well. We obviously were very, very heavily engaged in Crossfire Hurricane, the Hillary Clinton email scandal, and then Hunter Biden laptop. So it's going to be fun to watch this come to fruition. Some of this information come out that we were trying to dig up over years, and we were obstructing our efforts to get the truth out.
Yeah, it's nice to see the work still being done. It'd be really nice to see some punishment, right? After everything that you just listed, Hillary Clinton emails, Russiagate, Hunter Biden laptop scandal, other than some people getting their security clearances taken away, no one's really gone to prison for that. And this is demonstrably illegal activity. I can't think of anything worse, actually, than laundering Russian disinformation through a FISA court to spy on your political enemy.
Well, of course, we see when it's the shoe's on the other foot, and you've got Democrats in charge of the Justice Department, that they will jail Republican figures for just not answering questions, much less lying to Congress to distract us and throw us off the trail. So, no, this is a crime that should be punished. There probably ought to be some jail time served.
What do you think about James Comer? Because he's doing quite the media tour right now. It seems like only the kind of thing that you would do if you were extremely, extremely scared or a total insufferable black hole narcissist, and maybe both. But, he made quite a bit of news, arranging shells like a preteen girl on a beach the other day, and then blaming his wife for it, which is quite the move, quite the alpha move there as a man. What happens next to James Comey? Because Cash and Dan according to their recent interviews, are going to war with James Comey.
Well, again, hopefully they will, investigate. Our problem, Senator Grassley and our staff's problem is it's very difficult to extract information out of the deep state, even when you have a Republican in control. So I think that's one of the reasons I appreciate the fact that President Trump appointed Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. These are individuals who are pretty bold, they're pretty aggressive, and they hopefully can dig up the information. But understand, people who engaged in wrongdoing in the previous administration or administrations, they cover their tracks. My guess is a lot of the evidence, a lot of the documents are destroyed. So that's one of the reasons you probably don't get prosecutions. It's hard to prove crimes. It's hard to do these investigations. So I don't know where this all leads. From my standpoint, the first step in accountability is exposure. I think we've collectively exposed James Comey for the complete hypocrite that he truly is, the partisan hack that he is, the turmoil he helped put America through with these cover-ups, with setting up people like Michael Flynn. The guy, he should be punished. I don't know to what extent we'll have the evidence to prosecute and convict him.
So let's talk about something that's, you're talking about Michael Flynn and Russia Gates. The news cycle is the lifespan of a gnat these days. So let's fast forward to something that broke just a week ago. Joe Biden had terminal cancer through his entire presidency. At the White House, Joe Biden had terminal cancer and perhaps was being treated. Many speculating that this was all those calling a lid at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, zipping off to Delaware for 3-day weekends and 4-day weekends every weekend, 577 days on vacation. Many speculating that could be Biden having cancer treatments or just maybe being so exhausted from this. You are leading the investigation into the Biden health crisis and cover up in the Senate. How are you gonna carve up this probably the greatest scandal in modern American history, Senator?
Well, you start with a serious investigation. And we'll start with, and we've issued letters to, I think, 28 individuals, people that you would expect had constant or frequent contact with President Biden. And you ask them some basic questions. I'm primarily concerned about, because we all saw his physical deterioration. Nobody takes joy in that. I mean, it's nothing good about getting old. But I'm most concerned about his mental deterioration, which was pretty obvious, I think, for a couple of years. I would say even during his initial campaign, which the press covered up for him, allowed him to win the presidency campaign from his basement. But I'm primarily concerned about that mental incapacity. And what did the cabinet, what did the vice president do? What were their discussions? There's a reason we have a 25th Amendment. This is the most powerful elected official in the world, in the history of the world. He has access to the nuclear codes. The administration makes decisions that impact every American and, quite honestly, impact people globally. You can't afford to have somebody who is mentally incapacitated in that position. That's why we have a 25th Amendment, and it is the responsibility. These individuals take an oath to uphold the Constitution. That includes the 25th Amendment. And that means if they witness the president incapable of fulfilling the duties of the president, they need to discuss it amongst themselves. I'm not saying it'd be an easy decision, but they need to invoke the 25th Amendment to protect the Constitution, to protect this nation, to protect American citizens. And we need to determine, who knew what, when, who was really in charge of the auto pen, who was making these decisions. We've got to get to the bottom of it. That'll be in itself a painstaking investigation. We need to bring these people in one at a time, individually, transcribed interviews, compare what they tell us to what other people tell us. This isn't going to be swift. This is no time for a swift show trial type of hearing. Bring people before us without having the documentation to back up the investigations and the interviews.
Are you going to bring in Joe Biden?
I can't say that right now. Right now, we're going to focus on elected and appointed officials and find out what they know, and then we'll see where the investigation leads us.
Would you consider bringing in Jill Biden?
Yeah, listen, if I have to subpoena people, I'll subpoena them. And based on what we find out, we'll request additional interviews and subpoena people that we think we need to talk to. Again, I intend to conduct a serious investigation because this is a serious matter. This isn't just some political witch hunt. This is a serious matter for future administrations. Again, the 25th Amendment was set up for a reason It wasn't invoked. I think you can probably argue just on what we know now, it probably should have been invoked, and we need to understand why it wasn't.
Senator, there was a lot of news made yesterday when a key member of President Trump's administration, his AI czar, his name is David Sachs. He went on Jesse Waters' show and he said, listen, I know who was running the auto pen. It's actually one of your colleagues, and you serve with her on multiple committees, is Elizabeth Warren. He says, I know as a matter of fact that Elizabeth Warren was working that auto pen and was able to get extremist, far left-wing agenda items across the finish line because she had access and she had polls. And are you expecting to bring in potentially one of your Senate colleagues, Elizabeth Warren, to answer for these allegations?
Again, we'll see where this investigation leads. That's new information to me. Obviously, very interesting, very troubling. Again, we need to find out who was running the administration. To what extent was President Biden incapacitated? Again, right now this is hearsay. We need to get evidence.
Okay. All right. Well, we know the guy, and he's a sound dude. So I have a feeling that if David Sachs knows, he knows. What's coming next as far as oversight inside of the Senate Judiciary? Obviously, this is going to be a key issue. And then the big beautiful bill. I know that you've made some public statements that you're not pleased with the amount of spending inside of the bill. Perhaps you could explain that for us.
Well, first of all, this is a budget reconciliation process, so we ought to be talking about the budget and numbers. About the only number we heard out of the debate during the House was 1.5 trillion, which sounds like a lot, but completely out of context. We're not discussing the fact that CBO projects we'll spend $89.3 trillion over the next 10 years. We will incur $22 trillion of deficits. That's an average deficit per year of $2.2 trillion. Nobody talked about the fact that 2019 we spent $4.4 trillion, and we've increased that 58% to over $7 trillion. So we need to have the debate of how completely unsustainable this is. The fact that the CBO estimates that we'll have an interest rate of 3.3%, that's inching up right now because creditors are looking at America as an uncreditworthy entity. So we need to have a serious discussion. We need to talk about the numbers. We need to be talking about the reality, not the rhetoric, not a slogan of one big beautiful bill, but the substance of what we have to do to stop mortgaging our children's future.
Yeah. So are you right now a no on this bill as it is currently written?
On the House bill, absolutely. It would actually add to the deficit. I mean, you got to go into a process like this with an overall goal, not just passing quickly something called the one big beautiful bill, but what are the goals? The minimum goal ought to be don't add to the deficit. Our goal should have been let's do what we can to reduce the deficit. How do we get to that balanced budget that President Trump pledged in his State of the Union that he was going to do for the first time in 24 years? How do you do it? There's no indication right now that the House bill does anything that gets us even close. It exacerbates the problem. The CBO projection is a rosy scenario right now. I could see that thing exploding by $4 to $8 trillion in additional deficit. So we need to have this discussion. I'm willing to listen to the president. I'm willing to listen to his economic team discuss these things, but we have to go in saying at a minimum, we cannot add to the deficit. And we've got to, again, we can't sustain $22 trillion of additional debt added over the next 10 years.
One of the only true nationalists and populists, somebody who rings like a bell whenever he's on the program. And as much as we want to see the Trump agenda codified and enacted, it's tough to see it done this way, frankly, with no Doge cuts. Maybe finally in closing here, Senator, I know that you've been a massive fan of Doge, and Elon, this was his last day yesterday. He announced his departure from Doge. Special government employee, can only work 130 days. A parting message to other Republicans in Congress who refuse to codify Doge cuts?
Well, first of all, we need the president to lead on this. Instead of twisting people's arms on the one big beautiful bill that didn't meet the moment, President Trump should have been for the last couple of months setting us up. We can't initiate this. The White House has to initiate a rescission package. We should have already voted on a dozen of those or half a dozen of those things. And President Trump should have been using his leadership to tell members of Congress, you have to eliminate this waste, fraud, and abuse. This is grotesque. Elon Musk identified, last time I looked, at least $165 billion in cuts. We haven't seen one rescission package, and the one they're talking about is a meager $9 billion. So I completely understand why Elon Musk sounds pretty disappointed, probably even disgusted at all that time and effort that he and his team put in, and it hasn't been codified, hasn't been realized. So again, I agree with Elon Musk. We need to take this up, but it requires presidential leadership, like we need presidential leadership on the reconciliation bill, to return to a reasonable pre-pandemic level and a process that can achieve and maintain it. That's what I've been saying since January 1st. And again, I've been pretty consistent.
All right. Probably the most consistent man in the Senate. Great Senator Ron Johnson. Go follow him here. He's on his rounding the corner on 700,000 subscribers on X. He makes the great state of Wisconsin proud. Godspeed, Senator.
Have a great day.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got some very interesting news here. President Trump has been offered $15 million to settle a lawsuit by CBS. Oh, the fake news will pay. Donald Trump started. Alex, can you? It's one time. Alex, can you grab me the President Trump's first press conference as president-elect with Jim Acosta when Donald Trump started the fake news. And he said, you're going to pay. He announced this 8 years ago. You're going to pay. His first time behind a microphone as president-elect. Donald Trump going ham and now delivering. Look at this. Paramount has begged to just pay Donald Trump $15 million to settle a lawsuit over the editing of a Kamala Harris interview. Now, we have the footage, but it's really important to, they just changed her answer. There's no other way to say it. They modified Kamala Harris's answer. They chopped it up and manipulated it to sound semi-coherent when it totally wasn't. It's not a big issue. It was on the war in Gaza. So, this is obviously something that causes people to vote one way or the other. So that's them rigging an election. Donald Trump's turned it down, allegedly. Paramount Global offered $15 million to settle Donald Trump's lawsuit against CBS News, which is like $1 billion. But the parties remain far apart on terms, the Wall Street Journal reported. Trump's team wants more than $25 million and is seeking an apology on air from CBS. It's threatened CBS with another lawsuit related to alleged bias of its news coverage, the report added. Paramount is expecting to nominate 3 new directors to its board in the coming weeks, bringing the total to 7, while one current director plans to step down as the company wants to make sure that it has a full board in place if the deal falls through. Paramount is trying to acquire CBS right now. So you're seeing massive changes, President Trump destroying the fake news. Now, speaking of fake news, this is going to sound a little catty and mean, but I want to play you this clip that's making all the rounds about Dan Bongino saying that he's going to release the Epstein footage. And he says, I've seen it myself. Here's one thing we know about Dan. Why would he set himself up for failure? Some people really do have really bad media instincts, and they do dumb things. Dan's not one of those people. Why would Dan Bongino be putting out there that he's going to crack the cocaine case of the White House, the Dobbs leak, that he's going to crack the J6 pipe bomber? Why would he be doing that if he didn't actually have the goods? Dan knows how humiliating these things are when you get beclowned in public and you can't deliver. So when Bongino says, I have footage of Epstein killing himself, I have footage that proves Epstein killed himself, well, you got to listen. The reason I like this is why it may not reaffirm my priors, and we've spent countless hours on this program just dissecting this down to just interviewing Rudy Giuliani 2 days ago, who built the prison. Rudy's saying there's no way that this happened. It's been written up everywhere. Dan says he has the footage. Release it. Here's what we've been calling for. All the stuff with Cash and Dan. I know that there's a lot of different opinions on Cash and Dan. It's very easy. Give us everything. If you give it to us, then I trust the American people. I trust this chat. I trust this show. I know that you're going to make the right decision. We're going to be able to see it. And everyone's going to be able to decide together that there's either something very suspicious going on here, ask questions, look through all of it. I mean, how much good did Tucker Carlson do when he released all the January 6th footage? Tucker going through that January 6th footage and like putting it out there, that really brought the American public over the finish line on saying this is not what we've been told. It's good. Trust the American people. Here's Bongino on Epstein this morning. It's making a lot of news.
Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't.
Right.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay. It was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release. That's what's taken a while on this. We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him.
Right.
There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
So again, as we have had experts on this program, including the guy who built the prison, saying, well, what about another prisoner? Couldn't another prisoner then have accessed Jeffrey Epstein's cell? Tucker Carlson talking about how nobody ever interviewed the other prisoners on the cell block. We have that as bombshell footage. Tucker's the one who, Tucker admits that the cameras, there were other cameras working, and those cameras don't show. Now, of course, you could manipulate the footage. I guess you could. How deep do you want to go on this? You could splice out. You could manipulate the footage. Everyone's seen it happen in a Hollywood movie, right? You just run a tape of an empty hallway. I suppose there's also that. But if you want to just take it prima facie at face value and say, okay, nobody went in or out, even Tucker admits that in his Epstein reporting, that there wasn't like a goon squad that got sent in, like a SEAL Team 6 that got sent in. So if you accept that contention that no one was going in or out of the cell block itself, then you zoom in on the cell block. Please do it as a play-beside, please. Zoom in on the cell block, 12 different cells. Who were in those cells? Well, the cells themselves had serial stranglers in them, for instance, bodybuilding serial stranglers. Did anybody ever interview that guy? He's on camera this is a well-known case. The guy was in that cell block, put there with Jeffrey Epstein, who's on suicide watch, allegedly. Wouldn't that mean that he's supposed to be alone? This guy was a cellmate of Jeffrey Epstein. Just saying. Has anybody ever done the interview? So what Bongino is saying is that there's no one going in or out. Tucker Carlson also says that, right? So you have confirmation from two people who I think are very trustworthy. So then what happens next? We have a great photo of this. Just pop that window up. Just throw it up. Just throw it up. But great photo of this guy. Isn't it? Real special. The buddy, the friend of Jeffrey Epstein. Real special guy here. Yeah. Who's built like the Thing from the Fantastic Four, and who was just happened to be sharing a cell with Jeffrey Epstein. He's on trial for mass strangulation. Jeffrey Epstein has a couple of bones broken in his neck and jaw that just wouldn't break if you were trying to hang yourself with tissue paper from a 4-foot cell. Somebody's going to have to explain it, but okay, that's a consistency. Ladies and gentlemen, nobody has to explain the great congressman from Tennessee, Rep. Andy Ogles, who's on live now to break some news for us. Are we looking at more Democrats getting arrested? Let's talk about it. Let's go. Congressman, you teased for us last week that something might be happening with the mayor of Nashville. Now, I know Tennessee to be a very patriotic red state. It's one of those states that just goes, as soon as the polls close, goes right for Donald Trump by 50 points. But apparently the mayor of Nashville has got himself into a little bit of a problem here, is playing with fire with ICE and criminal aliens. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so what a mess of a story, right? In the fact that you've got ICE doing their job. They're literally deporting illegal immigrants, and these are the folks, to be clear, that they're targeting, have been targeting in Nashville were murderers, rapists. They all have priors or deportation orders. I mean, these are not nice folks, right? These are violent individuals, drug traffickers, child traffickers. I mean, yeah, again, not people you want in your community. Just a few days ago in Brentwood, a suburb of Nashville, you had a Chilean gang, masked, et cetera, was arrested because they were serial burglars in the suburbs. I mean, this type of thing is coming to Nashville. And so now you have the mayor of Nashville who's come out and said, hey, without calling Nashville a sanctuary city, he's trying to make Nashville a sanctuary city. And so we said enough. I said enough is enough, called him out on it. And, this idea that the city of Nashville would somehow impede ICE or federal law enforcement. You had a state representative, a Democrat, member of their General Assembly here, who used her vehicle to block ICE vehicles. And she put on her own Instagram, which she has since deleted most of her social media, that she was able to delay 4 ICE vehicles. So this has really escalated. So Homeland Security, Judiciary, we have a letter that drops today where we're going to be investigating the mayor of Nashville and Nashville itself to see if any federal funds went towards aiding and abetting illegals.
Yeah, I mean, if you're blocking ICE agents from doing their job,
yeah, right there.
Right, you have a member of Congress, right, who's being now hopefully going to be federally prosecuted and put in prison for doing a similar activity.
She assaulted, so I'm on the Homeland Security. Kristi Noem was in committee, and I asked her, I said, obviously Congress, we have an oversight responsibility here, Homeland Security oversight responsibility. Does that give us the authority or the right to storm a detention center? And she said, no. Does that give us the authority or the right to assault a member of federal law enforcement? And she said, no. And then, of course, I brought up the congressman who's on that committee, by the way, the Homeland Security Committee. And, she's got 2 charges against her, I think, for assaulting a federal member of federal law enforcement. I think you have a mayor up in Minnesota somewhere that's been charged, or is a judge rather, for abetting an illegal. And we'll see what happens in Nashville. But this story's been getting a lot of attention, and it should, because these are the worst that society has to offer. They're here illegally. Their very first act when they came into this country was an illegal act. If you're working without a social security number, that's illegal. If you have a social security number that was illegally obtained, that, of course, is a crime. I mean, the list goes on, and yet you have these woke mayors, these activist mayors who are defending illegal criminals over their own citizens. And I, for one, and it's sad, quite frankly, that it's a member of Congress that is stepping up to say, I'm going to make Nashville's streets safer. Next, I'm going to turn my attention to Memphis, which is the murder capital of the country, and say, we're going to take back our communities. Enough of these criminal gangs that have infiltrated our country and our state from Central, South America, and Mexico.
Yeah, come on, man. Let's have some respect for Elvis's legacy. Come on. Yeah. All right. Well, good. And I love visiting Nashville, and it's an epicenter actually for conservative media and for conservative thought and culture creation. And it's so sad actually that the city votes blue. It'd be really nice to flip that. It's happening all across the state of Florida with big cities, and I really hope that it happens to Nashville. So the Committee on Homeland Security, I wanted to ask you about your interactions with Kristi Noem. I want to ask you about something that is particularly in her purview as she sits over the Secret Service. The American public is like, what the hell, man? We've gotten absolutely nothing about any of these assassins that took a hunk out of Trump's head and that nearly changed the course of, destroyed Western civilization, frankly. If they deliver an on-air execution of Donald Trump, I mean, the country descends, I think, quite frankly, into civil war. It's really bad. Praise God that it didn't happen. But maybe it's like incumbent on us to have a little urgency in figuring out, who is this guy talking to? Who is he communicating with? Why don't we have any information? You're on the Department of Homeland Security Committee. They have everything. They're over the Secret Service. What's going on with that?
Well, so far, we've not received a briefing on the assassination attempts, plural. But
that's insane. That's crazy, right?
Well, to be determined. That's one of those, and quite frankly, that's something that I can request to see if there's any information there. Then you have, your previous segment, Jeffrey Epstein. Again, if there's video there that shows no one else in the cell block, I mean, his cellmate was built like a tank. I mean, come on, my money's on that guy. I mean, holy cow, looks like he could choke a door to death. But that being said, I mean, let's just admit what happened. Air the laundry to the American people. So you restore trust in the government, because that's one of the problems we have now. That under the Biden administration, you had illegality across the board. You had weaponization of the Justice Department. People don't trust their government. Citizens don't trust their government, and we've got to restore that. And that just takes time. Part of that would be to divulge what really happened to Epstein. Let's talk about the alleged shooter. American people can handle it, right? And like you said with the J6 files, just release the information, let us go through it, let us digest it. And then, again, you're building trust as we go forward. And we've got to make sure we got to get back to this idea that justice is blind, that there isn't two systems of justice, that the Biden administration really solidified, codified, if you will. But we've got to tear that down and get back to this idea that where there's going to be transparency, we're going to give you the information that we know when we have it. I mean, that's how I became a member of Congress, is during COVID. I fought back against the nonsense. I had a regional hospital and a regional health department under my purview. And as soon as I had data that was pertinent to the people in my community, but then it became a regional thing, I was releasing that information, and I became a trusted source of truth for people. And that being said, so when I ran for Congress, I won a 6-9-way primary by 11 points. Was outspent my last primary by 4-1, and I won by 15, because I'm just no nonsense. I tell people what I've got, and you can take it or leave it.
Okay, so here's no nonsense. Here's a photo of Matthew Thomas Crooks right before taking a hunk of President Trump's head off on his phone. And he's talking with someone, or he's texting someone. We know that he had a bunch of apps. Have you ever seen this phone?
No, not at all.
Okay, so you're on the Homeland Security Committee. Have you ever asked for his phone?
We have not. I have not.
So have you ever asked for like his emails or his communications or anything?
Well, what I'll say is going forward, that this is something that
wouldn't it be nice to know, like, who the F he was talking to, like, or who was radicalizing him, or what, like was it a Fed? Was it Iran? Was it, I mean, who knows, right? Like, was it the Communist Chinese? Was it Ukrainians? Like, wouldn't it be nice to know that? We know that the dude who's on trial, Ryan Ralph, was requesting Stinger missiles from Ukraine in order to shoot down Trump's plane. That seems like an insane, I was like, wow, well, maybe we should look into that. Like, was the Ukrainian military trying to kill Trump?
Well, I mean, who wakes up on a morning and says to themselves, oh, I'm going to reach out to the Ukrainian groups, radicals, whomever in Ukraine, and ask for some missiles. But no, this is certainly something that I can request. If I get any traction there, I'll let you know. Okay. But, it's one of those, if you don't ask, sometimes you don't get. And as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, I'll certainly ask.
Chrissy Noem, when we asked her about this, said, we're not sure if he was working alone. And I was like, wait, really? That's crazy. Well, I will can we get some information on that? Like,
yeah. What I will say about the secretary is they have been going through a mountain of information trying to sort through these types of cases, and it just takes time. We sometimes kind of get into the CSI mode where we expect the wrap of the story in 55 minutes, and it's just not going to happen. But that being said, sure, I do have faith in the secretary that if there's something there, that she'll let us know about it, even if it's in a confidential setting, so that we're apprised of it, then we can reassure the American people. But that being said, I have no fear or qualms about asking for the truth and pursuing the truth in any of these matters.
Right. Well, we'd love to work with you on the damn phone of Matthew Thomas Crooks. Do you even know where it is? Like, where is it?
Yeah, I've got zero information on this
like,
case.
It's like, wouldn't this be probably one of the, like John Wilkes Booth, you'd kind of want to know what he was doing right before he shot Lincoln. Like Lee Harvey Oswald, you kind of want to know like what his motivations are. This would be a great piece of evidence for the American people to understand like what the hell was going on with this kid's head.
That's right.
Okay. Do you have like a toxicology report for Matthew Thomas Crooks? Have you ever seen anything like that?
Literally, we've been presented nothing. Of course, our priority up to this point has been securing the border.
Yeah.
And so I just received a classified briefing on the gangs that are operating in the United States, which is they're not gangs anymore. People have to understand they're more sophisticated than the mafia ever has been in their ability to surveil, counter surveillance, their trafficking routes. It's amazing. And so that, quite frankly, has been a large part of our priority. But that being said, I agree with you. Let's find out the truth. Let's see if this kid was working alone, then fine. Let's show people the truth. If he was working with a foreign entity or foreign state, then let's reveal that truth to the American people. Again, let's rebuild trust. I mean, when you look at the FBI, the Secret Service, these are storied institutions that at one point most little boys aspired to be, that you pretended to be as a little kid, right? And now I think they're stained because of this failed Biden administration. And so we have a tremendous opportunity to restore that trust. But part of that is releasing this information. Understanding it takes time because they're going to dot their I's and cross their T's. I understand that and respect that. But it never hurts to give people, and you say, hey, look, we're working on this. Here's where we are in the case. Here's our expected timeline. And again, just reassure the people that you're working on it. But I totally get where you're coming from.
Well, right. Like it's the seminal moment that everybody will remember where they were when they heard that Trump was shot in the head, and we've heard nothing. And you said that no one's even asked for the questions. No one's even asked, like, give us the toxicology report. What drugs was he on? What medications was he on? Who was controlling his brain? Who was frying his brain? What does his cell phone look like? What does his text messages look like? What's his emails look like? What's his porn habits look like? Like, seriously, crack the whole thing up. It's like, crack the whole thing up and let us see the inside of his bedroom. What was he looking at? We know he donated to Joe Biden in progressive causes one time. So, like, that's it? That's all we know? Yeah. And so it seems like they're trying to JFK this thing, where they're trying to bury it, and it's insane.
I'll push back on that. I think there's an ongoing investigation. We've seen the preliminary information, most of which is in the public purview. But I also understand they've got a lot on their plate. But we'll push.
Why'd they cremate the body? They cremated the body faster than a household pet, faster than a goldfish.
Yeah. And so
goldfish that dies gets Matthew Thomas Crooks got cremated faster than your goldfish. For your 3-year-old.
Yeah, but I mean, you raise an interesting point. So what was the process? How did that happen so quickly, considering that this was something that literally could have disrupted Western civilization? And what forces were at play? And who are those folks? And are they still in our government? Because that's the other thing. We start peeling back the layers, is that you have the deep state is real. They don't like you. They don't like me. And the biggest fear that anyone should have is that if you have a change in administration and suddenly swings back hard the other direction, that deep state is still there and waiting. It's ready to pounce. And so we've got to uncover. So part of that is who hid an obfuscated truth about Epstein or the shooter or assassination attempts the laundry list is long, and we got to root those people out. It's like cockroaches in the night. Shine a light on them, and so that they'll scatter, and we can get to the truth and the bottom of this. And again, we've got to restore trust. Man, these institutions, we've seen J6. They literally weaponized against the American people. You've seen some of the folks and like the Chrisleys that were 12 and 7-year sentences. I don't know the specifics of their case, but they were specifically harsh relative to the alleged crimes and those sorts of things. And so, again, had they been a woketivist, a BLM member, an Antifa member, they would have gotten a slap on the wrist. Because they were conservative, Christian, and white, the hammer was dropped on them. That kind of nonsense has to stop.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you'd be a hero to this show and this audience if you figured out why this was less than 12 hours after Trump takes a bullet to the face. Less than 12 hours, the FBI is power washing the crime scene. What the F, Congressman? Right. What? Okay.
That's not power washing. That's called sanitizing. They're cleaning up a mess, and maybe of their own making, quite frankly.
Yeah. That's what the American people want to know, and we can handle it, right? Like, we can take it.
Sure.
Okay, just one final thing on the Secret Service, because this is in the news. So Homeland Security oversees the Secret Service. It's technically overseen by you, and there was a brawl outside of Obama's house. Yeah. And it's a brawl of these Secret Service agents. It was like, really, it was world star stuff.
Right.
And now we've heard that they've been put on leave, but it's begged the question, is there still like rampant DEI inside of the Secret Service? Since you're on Homeland Security, you'd clearly want to know this because it led to kind of the overarching problem, right, with Trump getting a bullet to the face.
Well, I mean, you saw with his detail that was protecting that day in Butler, Pennsylvania. I mean, one of the body individuals, so the body person is someone who literally stands in front of the president to protect them from a bullet. Well, the president's 6'3". One of the agents was all of 5'8". Look, you don't have to be a genius to understand that math doesn't work. It's not sexist. It's not racist. If you're not 6'2", or darn close to 6'3", you're probably not going to be a body man for the president of the United States who's over 6 feet tall, right? Like, you've got to have some big individuals. But that being said, but you see it with the Secret Service. You've seen it with the FBI. We've seen it with air traffic control, where there was literally, they were systematically setting aside white male applicants and only hiring other. And even if they had available spaces and there was no other candidates in that pool of other, they still would not hire the white applicants. And so what we've seen across the country is you have individuals largely coming out of the military who have air traffic controller training, wanting to come to work, and they're qualified. They could walk into the booth today and start working. And they're like, you know what, we're going to wait just in case we have a DEI hire who, quite frankly, isn't capable of doing the job. And so this has been a systemic problem that, would have happened under Obama, but the Biden administration, and this is the thing, and quite frankly, scary, of who was really running. So this is another question that has to be asked. This is another question that has to be uncovered. Who was really running the country under Joe Biden? Because we know it wasn't Joe Biden. Chief of Staff, Jill Biden. I mean, you go down, who was that cabal that was committing, quite frankly, treason and running this country? But also all of these, the DEI and the military and these agencies and weaponizing the government against the American people, they did that. And they did it to you, and they've done it to me, and they've done it to others because they don't like us. They want to reshape this country into a version that isn't the America that our founders set forth to create and successfully created. And we've got to fight back, which is, quite frankly, part of the reason I ran for Congress.
Well, Congressman, we have some. It looks like you have some tough questions to ask. But
it's
again,
gonna be busy next week, right? I was like,
that's right.
Gave me a laundry list of things to get done.
Well, that just doesn't seem to be anybody leading on this issue, and they put in. Congress has a little committee there, but we haven't gotten any answers. We've gotten absolutely nothing, and now we just find out that Ukraine is supplying Stinger missiles to go shoot down Trump's plane. It seems like a problem for us. I mean, I don't know. We might be an outlier here, but it seems like that's not where our tax dollars should go, because Lord knows we paid for those missiles. So,
but I mean, again, you keep the layers, right? Like, how does Ukrainian radicals or whoever they are have a pipeline to the criminal underworld into the United States that some kind of lone wolf could make contact and even make that request? That goes back to the classified briefing that we were just received on the cartels out of Mexico and the gangs out of Central and South America. Their operations that have been allowed to be set up and fester in this country are frightening. I mean, shoot, they've got a global network that rivals FedEx. I mean, come on. And so that happened under Joe Biden's watch. And so there's a lot to unpack here. And quite frankly, when you look at some of these agencies, as they try to root out the woke and they try to retrain individuals that can actually do a job, they've got a mountain of 4 years of casework that wasn't done properly that they're trying to go through, which is why you see some of these delays with Epstein and some of this other stuff. That being said, I'm happy to lead the charge, to write letters to the secretary asking for an update. If nothing else, give us a brief. Tell us what you have, what you got, what's the forecast of when this might be concluded, and then the unclassified portions of that, I'm happy to come back on and share with you in the audience.
Okay, well, good. Yeah. Why were the Lady Ghostbusters dispatched to protect Trump on that specific day, right? Yeah.
I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, I get it. Yeah. I see what you see.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Melissa McCarthy can't holster her weapon. You can holster a couple coats. I have a strange throwback here from my executive producer, the great ALX, showing you doing the coat check actually at a inauguration gala, I believe. And so we just want to say thank you for your service. You're a man of many talents here.
Well, it was one of those situations where, again, I don't know if it was understaffed. I don't know if it was DEI, but they couldn't find you know what, from a hole in the ground. I said, you know what? I just walked up to him and said, I'm a member of Congress. I'm going to help you. And I started walking back and grabbing tickets, and suddenly we whittled through the line. But at some point, you just got to grab the bull by the horns and say, we're going to get this done. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do with some of these cases that you mentioned.
All right. Yeah. Hey, very good. I have a feeling. I have a feeling that finding the damn cell phone of the Trump assassin Should be as easy as finding the coat here at Coat Check.
Yeah, I'm guessing that there's a little ticket number that goes with it as well.
Yeah.
So let's get that ticket number.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much, Congressman, and we appreciate it. Here's the Congressman's social media. Rounding the corner on 60,000 follows, making a lot of news. Has a bill out to get Donald Trump a third term. We're in support of that, and we just want to say thank you, Congressman, for being on the show. Look forward to some barbecue with you in Nashville one of these days.
Hey, just say the word, and I'm there.
That's right, my man. Thank you, Congressman.
All right, goodbye.
Right, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness gracious, what a fun little show. Sometimes you gotta knock some people into the glass, right? Like what everyone yells and screams, and I'm one of them, about nothing getting done. And I'm not here to like paint some type of rosy, perfect picture. It hasn't been rosy or perfect. But we do have an obligation to you and to the chat to make sure that we body check the people who have the ability to ask the right questions. We're on here asking the questions every single day. There's only so much that we can do. These guys have classification. They have clearances. They have security clearances. They can set up a skiff. Skiff's like think of like a trailer, like a little like a box, like a container box, right? That like a car would come in from overseas. They set up the skiff. They bring it in, and they're like, here's Matthew Thomas Crooks' phone. We're gonna turn it on for you. You can look through it. Here's a bunch of here's all of his stuff. You can do these things. You can ask for. You can request this stuff. Congressman can do it. I can't do it. I don't have access to skiff. That's a skiff. I don't have access. Maybe someday. Maybe someday. You never know what God has in store. God has a plan. That's what we absolutely know. God has a plan. We don't know. This is what Bongino works out of. And he works out of this so that he can request all of the classified material that he wants. He can't spy on these things. They're impenetrable, as far as I know, from various 5G, Huawei radio waves to try and pick up all of our secrets. This is why they set them up. And this is where the congressman can literally ask for one of these to be brought in to the committee so they can go through all of the assassins' information. We've heard nothing. We've heard very creepy things, that like his house was completely sanitized and didn't have any silverware. It was like an MK Ultra, like breed ground, like Operation Staging Base. That's what we've heard. So why don't you put it to rest and release all of the information? Do the same thing with Epstein. We will cheer you, right? We will cheer. It was one of the best moments in American history. Tucker Carlson releasing Buffalo Horn guy, Jacob Chansley, right? He released that great episode. I will remember it for the rest of my life. Jacob Chansley with his beautiful buffalo horns, such a sweetheart. We did a whole interview with him. Jacob Chansley was the face of January 6th. A rabid, evil, frothing at the mouth, violent insurrectionist who stormed into the Capitol. And Tucker Carlson releases all of the video evidence, and it's the opposite of what you've been told. Jacob Chansley got selected by a Hollywood producer when he spotted him in the crowd. I kid you not. He was selected by one of the guys that they brought in to stage produce the January 6th committee because Jacob Chansley looked crazy. And he looked like here's a photo. He looked like a crazy guy. So they wanted you to think that this was what January 6th was. Jacob Chansley is a victim. Jacob Chansley should sue. Maybe he is. Maybe it's time to book Jacob Chansley again. The point is that they brought him down. The police escorted Jacob Chansley down to the well of the Senate in order to make a mockery of him, in order to get photo. They staged photo ops with this guy. They took advantage of him, actually. That's what's relayed in the footage. So as this plays beside, we can just play it. We don't have to watch the whole thing. But as this plays beside, and as you look at the body cam footage, and as you observe this stuff, wouldn't it be nice to have this for Epstein? Wouldn't it be nice to have this for the J6 pipe bomber? Wouldn't it be nice to have this for the assassin? And then you put it to bed, right? Maybe it does confirm our priors. Maybe it doesn't. But at least when you release this stuff, instead of hoarding it and oogling it yourself inside of a skiff, and yes, this is a direct message to everybody from Tulsi to Cash to Bongino. If you give this out, there's no way that you can fight this. Jacob Chansley peacefully walking by cop after cop after cop. Look at the police escort. Let's try not to freak out here. Look at the police escort. They're walking him. They're escorting him. He's got an armed escort into the Senate. They set Jacob Chansley up. Justice for Jacob Chansley. And we're back. Look at him go. This is you have a squad of at least a half dozen riot police here, armed to the teeth, that Jacob Chansley walks right by. Nobody does anything. Do-do-do, do-do-do. Can we get that meme? Get that January 6th meme. We'll close with that. Now I got the itch. Get that J6 meme, please. The guy doing the voiceover of it. Day at J6, right? Winning the costume competition. Get that. Let's end with that. Good old Chansley. We miss that guy. J6 guy on intercom meme. Yeah, that's right. This is the meme that Elon Musk shared. He posted it. Probably the greatest ratio in the history of X, I would argue. He posted this meme underneath Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer was raging about Tucker Carlson doing this. It's great. From our friend Steven Voiceover. Yeah, and Elon Musk bodying Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer was raging that Tucker would release that footage that we've just played. That Tucker would release this, and Elon Musk then made this meme. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll end on this. We'll play it in just a second. Let us get to the verse of the day here, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob Chansley, also just a total sweetheart. We spent some time in the desert with him doing shaman ceremonies. He painted my face. Crazy old clips we had there. James 4:7. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Woo! Yeah. You just got to resist. The Lord's Prayer says, lead us not into temptation. It's amazing what happens when you stand strong and when you have a good firm spine. The nature of evil is actually not that scary. You flip on the lights and the ghosts disappear. You stand up strong. You punch, the bully, right? It's the bully paradigm. The bully's not used to getting punched. And the moment that you taste blood and you have a tooth that's loose in your mouth, the bully goes away. So stand up. We thank you for standing with us. If you would like to do something that's totally free, that would help us out, could you please subscribe to our podcast? Here's a QR code on your screen. You can also go to BennyJohnson.com and you can see all of the, just take you links right to the podcast. Just search for The Benny Show. Just type in Benny. First one pops up. And we have new cover art, Eric. So let's get the new cover art, new thumbnail loaded up for the podcast. The point is that we're trying to grow our RSS feed. We want to make sure that we have that we're stocked and ready for the fights ahead. And this helps us a lot. So we just want to say thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. This is this is my favorite meme, my favorite January 6th meme, and there's plenty of them. This is my favorite January 6th meme. We hope that you enjoy it. The truth is the light, salt and light. Thank you for marching with us. We're not sick of winning. On to victory. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the U.S. Capitol building. If you've joined us today for the insurrection, please make sure you pick up a promotional leaflet on the way in, stay inside the safety cordons at all times, and if you get lost, speak to one of our Capitol police officers. They'll be sure to point you in the right direction. And be sure to set aside a little time today to join us for some insurrection activities, including our photography tour, our fancy dress competition, and have a go on our climbing wall. But don't forget those safety ropes. And I've now received the results of our fancy dress competition. The winner today is Jacob Chansley. That's Mr. Jacob Chansley. If you could report to your nearest Capitol Police officer, they'll be sure to give you your prize, a guided tour of the building. And all that's left is for me to thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the insurrection. Wherever possible, please try to clean up after yourselves. Don't forget to visit the souvenir shop on the way out, and feel free to join us on the outdoor terrace for Nancy Pelosi's Insurrection Soiree. Grab yourself a light refreshment and enjoy the music of our very own fancy dress competition winner.
Truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies. Watch the truth cascade with the warrior's heart. This man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies. Watch the truth cascade with the warrior's heart. This man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.